Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, joined now by United States Senator Tom Cotton. Good morning, Senator. Good to have you.
Good morning, Hugh. Good to be on with you, as always.
I had a White House friend tell me that when Phase 4 comes around, they're going to request, and they're hoping that you lead the charge, for $40 billion in Pentagon funding, including $11.5 billion in cost overruns related to COVID, $5.6 billion in protection of defense industrial base, and $24 billion for unfunded DoD priorities, which includes an additional VA, a Virginia-class sub, a dozen USMC F-35Bs, a bunch of F-35As for the Air Force, $8 billion to extend Ticonderoga-class and Oliver Hazard Perry-class ships' life, and $2 billion for the Coast Guard cutters. Are you in or out, Senator Cotton?
Hugh, I would say that you are very well sourced indeed. In fact, proposal mirrors legislation I've introduced known as the FORCE Act, which is designed to both negate the impact of coronavirus on our defense industry and also prepare to check China's ambitions in the West Pacific. My bill, $43 billion, is about evenly divided between, as you said, at first, cost overruns and the impact of the virus on the defense industrial base. We've all read stories about its impact on, say, sports or concerts or meatpacking or what have you. It's had the same impact on all industries, to include industries like the defense industry that is not selling directly to consumers, so therefore doesn't generate a lot of media attention. But what we don't want to have is a situation in which we end up buying aircraft or fewer ships or fewer missiles, not just this year, but for years to come, because our defense industry had to shut down factories or reduce line time in those factories. The second big category investments are in exactly those kinds of ships and aircraft that are designed to fight in the Western Pacific, deter China's aggression. As much as the Army may need, say, extended long-range cannons or more ground-based missiles for the Europe theater, it's our stealth fighters, our submarines, it's our intermediate-range missiles in the Western Pacific that are directly designed to take advantage of China's weaknesses and to deter China's aggression. That's what I think is the link to the virus, as opposed to just generically buying all of the unfunded priorities. So, and the third and final category is building a more resilient electrical grid. I can tell you that as bad as the pandemic was, imagine going through the pandemic with a city or even a region or the entire country having its electrical grid knocked out. And I think that's an instance where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure in the future.
So all of that can be done for $43 billion?
It can be. I know that is a lot of money, but at a time when we've spent $3.5 trillion to help our people survive this dreaded virus and get past the peak and get back to work and get the economy back to feet, I don't think that we should swallow camels and choke on gnats when it comes to funding our defense and making sure that we're prepared to deter China's aggression against us.
Have you cleared this with OMB? Because last time when we did Phase 3, OMB scuttled a request for defense funding, which I cannot believe President Trump even knew about. Do you have support across the administration for the $43 billion?
We are working with all the key players, Hugh.
So is that a yes?
We will continue to work on the legislation until next month. I suspect we'll be considering it in the Senate.
Tell me where you think your colleagues in the caucus are, because I think this is actually a red line for me. If the Republican-controlled Senate doesn't get $43 billion out of $4 trillion of spending, what in the world are you doing there?
I think most Senate Republicans understand that they need to protect our defense industry. It's not necessarily something that's top of mind for them. If they're not on the Armed Service Committee, they don't follow this closely. Again, we all know about the challenges in, say, the meatpacking industry because it was all over the news a month ago. There's not really been much media reporting on this because the defense industry obviously doesn't sell directly to consumers. So part of that I've undertaken, some of my friends in the Senate have undertaken, is to help inform our fellow senators about the strain the defense industry is facing because of the virus. And once they learn about that strain, they agree that we need to take steps protect its health for the long term.
Senator Wicker, of course, is Mr. Navy, and that's very good, but he's got to lead the charge on this as well. When it comes down to Coast Guard cutters, most people look at me and say, what's that got to do with COVID? It doesn't. It actually got to do a lot with China, which has to do with COVID. Can you explain to people why we need Coast Guard cutters?
Yeah, I think that's right, Hugh. And Senator Wicker has been a great champion of our defense industry and trying to protect its long-term health in one of these emergency relief packages. So obviously the Western Pacific is primarily a maritime theater, and Coast Guard cutters are very important in that maritime theater, especially in the South China Sea, when so much of what's going on in the South China Sea is a kind of hybrid gray zone effort by the Chinese Navy to attack fishing vessels or other nations' Coast Guard. It's an effort that we would undertake to help defend those nations, friendly nations like Taiwan or the Philippines or Malaysia, who are confronting Chinese aggression on the high seas in the South China Sea.
$43 billion, that's the number. Senator Cotton, good luck in that. We'll check in with you again next week. I don't think we're going to get there until next month, but it's coming soon. I hope it's got that $43 billion in it, and I hope every member of the Senate GOP caucus realizes the party is watching, and you've got the lead on this along with Senator Wicker. Thank you. Don't go anywhere, America. Hour number 3 is straight ahead. The Heritage Hour on the Hugh Hewitt Show is coming up. The Heritage Foundation leads American conservatism when it comes to intellectual effort, and they have led on the COVID. We'll talk about it next on the Hugh Hewitt Show.